The week's end top stories at NBR. Kiwi bus company bought by global investment firm. Harmony admits charging unreasonable fees. More results, and there's more coming right up. Kia ora and welcome to NBR This Week. We start with a wrap of the end of the week's top business stories for the last week of August 2021 from the authority in New Zealand business news since 1970, nbr.co.nz. Then we'll take a look back at the top NBR Today stories from the past week. I'm Paul Brennan. Thanks so much for joining us. Kiwi bus company Ritchie's Transport has signed a deal to be bought by global investment firm KKR. The investment will be KKR's first infrastructure deal in New Zealand. Founded in Temuka in 1935 by John Ritchie Sr., Ritchie's has a fleet of more than 1,600 vehicles and a network of 42 depots nationwide and has about 1,800 staff. It operates public transport services on behalf of the local government councils and also runs government-contracted nationwide school bus services and offers interregional long-haul, charter and tour bus services. The Ritchie family will continue to hold a stake in the company once the deal is concluded, and the investment amount has not been disclosed. The Ritchie family refused further comment beyond a joint PR statement it has put out with KKR. Prospective and existing retail investors have flocked to online platforms Sharesies, Hatch and Stake with the reintroduction of Level 4 lockdown restrictions, fueled by a bit of spare time and cash. But the noticeable uptick in sign-ups and activity on the platforms is nowhere near as apparent as during the first lockdown last year, with markets significantly less volatile this time around. New Zealand went into Level 4 lockdown last Tuesday night following the emergence of community cases of the COVID-19 Delta variant. Dual-listed online lender Harmony has admitted charging unreasonable fees and will repay tens of thousands of overcharged borrowers, about $7 million, after a long-running dispute between it and the Commerce Commission settled. Auckland-based Harmony provides unsecured personal loans of up to $70,000 across Australia and New Zealand, with an average loan size of $25,000. It has lent to more than 50,000 customers for a total loan book of $501 million, roughly a quarter of whom are in Australia. But back in July 2014, Harmony was the first company to get a licence from the Financial Markets Authority for peer-to-peer lending under the Financial Markets Conduct Act of 2013. A steady trickle of people back into movie theatres and a slate of Hollywood blockbusters scheduled for this year and next have afforded a hopeful horizon to dual-listed cinema software company Vista Group. The company released its half-year results this morning, showing revenues had not budged since the first half of last year and were essentially flat at $45 million. Auckland-based company Delegate Wine Company's net profit after tax in the year to June 30 fell 5% to $62.2 million as revenue dipped slightly to $305.3 million, with case sales down 3% to $3,178,000. And Port of Tauronga's 2021 profit jumped 15% as it put 25.7 million tonnes through its port while dealing with global and local supply chain stress. The NZX-listed port posted a net profit of $102.4 million for the year to June 30. Global supply chain disruption shows no signs of easing up. COVID-19 variants and a multitude of other dynamics have taken their toll on the New Zealand supply chain. NZX-listed Napier Port and Port of Tauranga both provided insight into the congestion in releasing financials to the market this week. In giving his outlook, Napier Port Chief Executive Todd Dawson said challenges to container-based supply chains from regional and global shipping disruptions would continue to overhang the free flow of cargo. Those are our top stories as we head into the weekend, the full versions of which, along with all our breaking business news columns and opinion, are at nbr.co.nz right now. You're watching NBR This Week, a brief look back now at the week's top stories from our daily NBR Today program. On Monday, a formal FMA warning for Sharesies. High-profile online investing platform Sharesies has received a formal warning from the Financial Markets Authority for anti-money laundering failures. The FMA said today Sharesies had failed to have sufficient anti-money laundering procedures, policies and controls in place. The issues were identified as part of the regulator's ongoing monitoring of compliance with the Anti-Money Laundering and Countering Financing of Terrorism Act. The FMA said Sharesies had failed to obtain information about the nature and purpose of the proposed business relationship from most customers, failed to obtain sufficient information to determine whether certain customers required further due diligence, and failed to complete identity verification for close to 8,000 customers who had invested more than $1,000. It was not alleged that Sharesies had allowed or enabled money laundering or the financing of terrorism to take place. It's NBR This Week, the week's top stories from our daily video business news bulletin, NBR Today. From Tuesday, Meridian disputes excess profit claims. Meridian Energy is countering claims by the major electricity users group that it made excess profits of $3.5 billion over the past 20 years, including $2.94 billion in the past 5 years. The country's biggest electricity supplier says the analysis lacks credibility, that industry members need to be working together through a difficult transition period rather than taking pot shots at each other. Group Chairman John Harbord said while Meridian's super profits, as calculated in the report, were not necessarily reflective of the sector as a whole, the users group was sufficiently confident that the analysis represented a robust and compelling reference for the market regulator, the Electricity Authority. He said the analysis should be extended to other suppliers. This is NBR This Week, the past week's top 5 business stories from NBR Today. From Wednesday, EROAD, Cortex, not taking competition clearance for granted. New Zealand's Commerce Commission remains the only hurdle to at least combining EROAD and Cortex. And they're not taking competition clearance for granted after announcing the merger in mid-July, structured as EROAD's $188 million cash and scrip acquisition of Cortex. Their clearance application was filed on August 20. It concedes the merged entity's New Zealand market share exceeds the Commerce Commission's concentration indicators, with EROAD, the number 1 local player in trucking fleet management technology, joining the 6th largest player, Cortex. Further details of their respective positions are redacted from the public application document. It's NBR This Week, the top business stories from our daily video news bulletin, NBR Today. From Thursday, National Party concerned about lack of clarity around workers who refuse to be vaccinated. The National Party is concerned that it's unclear whether firms can sack workers who refuse to be vaccinated against COVID-19. Workplace Relations and Safety Minister Michael Wood appeared before Parliament's Education and Workforce Select Committee this morning and faced questions on what legal rights employers had when it came to dealing with unvaccinated workers. Wood said the government did have a health order in place which required workers at the border and MIQ facilities to be vaccinated, but there were no plans to require workers in other workplaces to be vaccinated. This is NBR This Week. Now we're up to Friday's top story. The Warehouse Group has bought a quarter stake of a local online pharmacy concern that has previously been dubbed the Uber Eats of prescriptions. It's not the Warehouse Group's first foray into medicines, the group having tried in-store pharmacies more than a decade ago. However, this time it's buying into the existing service Zoom Health, which in turn owns 49% of Zoom Pharmacy. It offers remote engagement with a pharmacist over the phone and dispensing of medicines and aims to target the thousands of New Zealanders who have zero or poor engagement with the primary healthcare system. You've been watching our review of the week's top 5 NBR Today stories. You can find the full versions of those stories and much more, along with all our daily breaking business news, columns and opinion at nbr.co.nz right now. Saturday, in Fact or Fiction, Brent Edwards and Grant Walker debate the week in politics, while on Monday, Shoeshine compares the pending IPOs of Vocus and 2 Degrees. I'm Paul Brennan. Thanks for watching NBR This Week. Have a great weekend. I look forward to being with you again from Monday on NBR Today.